All right, everyone, we will call to order our January 10th, 2023 drainage meeting. Number one, roll call. Please note that Mr. Turner and Mr. Robert are absent. Invocation, Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Cagnalotti, if you would be so kind.
Heavenly Father, we ask your blessings as we gather tonight to address drainage, flood control for Ascension Parish citizens. We ask that you bless us and guide us in all of our actions, and may your Holy Spirit be with us at all times, for we place our lives in your hands, always and forever, in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving on to item number 3, election of chair and vice chair. I'd like to remind everyone, I will open up nominations. Please state a name of one of the commissioners you would like to nominate for chair, and no matter, I've been told no matter attendance tonight, we do need 6. We need a majority of the commission, not a majority of the body that's here. So with that being said, I will open up nominations for 2023 drainage chairperson.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Terry Cazzo for chair.
All right, Mr. Mason has nominated Ms. Casso. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations for chair? Hearing none, this is Ms. Casso's gavel.
Well, y'all know I've got a lot of stuff to move to get over there.
Just give her a minute. She's got her Dooney and Burke bag. Oh, excuse me. Give me some of your stuff.
I'll try to distribute it all somewhere. Yeah. Just don't let me leave without it.
Whenever you settle, I'm going to give you a little.
Oh, well, thank you for that.
There you go. Congrats to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to chair drainage. It's not been something I've done in my now 12th year of this in my work with Ascension Parish. I've got a big seat to fill. We stand on big shoulders here. We followed Chase, Dempsey, others over the years who have been the drainage chairman. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity. We do have goals for this year, and I look forward to those. We're going to accomplish almost all of them. So thank you very much. At this point, it is necessary to have a vice chairman, and so I will repeat what Mr. Melanson said. The chair will entertain a motion for the vice chair, and we will need 6 votes for the chair.
I'll nominate Dempsey Lambert.
Mr. Dempsey Lambert's name has been entered into consideration. Are there any other nominees? Then are there any opposition? Hearing none, Mr. Lambert, I think you're the vice.
That's you.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate the commissioners, everyone. Looking forward good year and administration and ready to go to work. Thank y'all.
Are y'all going to swap, but it won't take you as long as it did me?
No.
Or are you going to swap this way?
I don't move. One more down.
We have a public comment sign-in period. If you would like to speak on any item on the agenda, please see the secretary, and you will have an opportunity to do that. I don't see anybody here that might be planning to speak, but we always welcome people to be here, sign in, and let their feelings be known so that we can make decisions that make sense for all of us. Item number 5, acceptance of the minutes.
Motion approved.
I have a motion by Councilman Cagnalotti, a second by Councilman Melanson to approve the minutes. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. That was the December 12th minutes. Item 6, I certainly don't have any report or announcement at this point, other than I had already have had, in anticipation that I might be elected to this spot, I had a very effective and positive meeting with the parish president. We discussed our shared goals, and it was amazing how many of the things on that list we each had been thinking about. And so that was promising, I think, to both of us, that we were on the same page. So I look forward to this year. Item number 7, general business. There is nothing. Item number 8, the drainage reports. At this time, we will have an update from HNTB on the ADAPT grant applications. Mr. Monson. This is going to be the shortest drainage meeting in the history of drainage.
Let me get the laptop fired up. I'm pretty excited to come here. It's always good when you bring good news. So at least making progress. I am due for a new laptop. This one's about 2.5 years old. Technology changes pretty quickly. All right. Okay. All right. So today I'm here to discuss some of the grant applications that we put in to get some of these projects built. First on the list is a Ravi Savoy Arena Wind Hardening. It's a part of a hazard mitigation grant program application. Some of the highlights here, it's intended to house about 1,650 people prior to an event. Folks like line workers who can't find a place to stay. As you know, hotel accommodations can be limited. And so first responders, folks that provide those type of services here. The total grant application is, $3.4 million, with the local share being $25.75, about $854,000 to the parish. The next HMGP grant application is the Les Chenier Lateral Detention and Drainage Improvement Project. Some of the highlights on this project, if we can get this project constructed and funded, it'll prevent flooding to about 400 homes and 20 businesses in this area. As you can see the animation there, this is what existing conditions look like. And by making the channel improvements there, we could take the water out of these subdivisions. Black Bayou Detention at Bro Road. This is another hazard mitigation grant. Total combined project cost about $7.2 million, another 75-25% split. The local share would be about $1.8 million. Hey, please stop me if you have any questions on any of these particular projects. This is a brick project application. So this is the Burt Allen Ditch Improvement. Brick, the brick NOFO was issued. We got the application in on time. This was going to be a scoping grant, which if you think about it as like a phase 1 grant, where they will fund the planning process of the planning and anything prior to construction. Now, if you're successful in getting that the scoping done, then you stand a really good chance of getting brick funding for construction as well. So this one is about right under $1 million, and so we think we got a good chance at it. We have a second brick application, and this is the Marty Burat Lateral. This is about $3 million total. This one, we went for the whole thing. We went for phase 1 and phase 2, which is design and construction. So if this one gets approved, we'll be able to do design and construction on this project. Again, 75-25% split, about $750,000 to the parish. And this is just the cost breakdown on all the grants that that we just discussed. They're all 25% split. And that's all I have. So if you have questions on any of these grant applications. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And gentlemen, does anyone have any questions? Comments they'd like to make? Thank you so much. I think it is going to be a record drainage meeting. So at this time, Ron is going to give us a little presentation to help us to better understand the incident that happened at the Marvinboro pumping station. I do want you to know that in my conversation with the parish president, I asked him if he would allow for a deep dive into this situation so that we were all satisfied that we had been completely transparent as to what had happened. And I asked him to allow me to have Mr. Dawson lead that charge, and the administration immediately said to him, look, there's videos, you can watch what happened. So I think that he's going to do just a little deeper dive and make sure we all understand. But we had some preliminary and mostly sufficient information, I think, that Ron can deliver today. But if you have any questions about anything in particular, you know, there's always a rumor mill when an incident like this happens. And so if you've heard something that concerns you, for goodness sakes, reach out to Mr. Dawson and say, look, this is what I'm hearing. Will you make sure that that's not, in fact, what happened? So I appreciate the willingness of the administration to let us look at this very long and hard. We've got this is our most expensive asset for drainage in Ascension Parish. It's our crown jewel. For years, we have spent a fortune to make it redundant so that it could continue to do its work. And we had a near disaster there last week. So, Ron, thank you for being here quickly and prepared to explain to not only to this commission but to the public what happened there.
Yes, ma'am. Well, good evening, Board. Congratulations, Ms. Terry and
Thank
Mr.
you.
Dempsey, on your elections there. We look forward to working with you guys. So we'll get right into it. And look, there's a lot of information in this presentation. So if you would, just let me get all the way through it, and we'll be glad to answer any questions at the end. But we'll paint a picture from the pumping event to response to moving forward. So just give you a summary of what took place. This all started on December the 30th, 2022. Rain forecast was supposed to be 1 to 2 inches of rain with a starting elevation approximately 1.5 feet. Rain totals actually wound up being 4 to 5 inches of rain within a short time frame of 2 to 3 hours was reported for the Ascension Parish area post-event. 4 crew members were on site at the Marvinboro station on the day of the incident. There were 3 employees at the station when the fire incident occurred. There was a mechanic of the crew that was sent to Henderson Bayou pumping station to troubleshoot an issue that we had at that station at the time of the incident. A replacement person was en route to the station. Unfortunately, coincidentally, the incident happened at that time, but there were 3 members at the station when it occurred. The start of the day, the crew was on site at 6:30 that morning. They started pumping operations, which continued as normal until approximately 11:40 a.m. when the operator noticed that engine number 3 had smoke coming from the clutch. He made contact with the other employee on the north floor to check his end as well, and he noticed at that point number 2 engine was having issues as well. There were 6 pumps running at the time of that incident, and they were turned off at the time the crew responded to the fire. The crew did try to extinguish the fire on their own with the fire extinguishers at the station. We feel like they did a great job doing so. They realized the magnitude of what took place. They immediately contacted management at approximately 11:45, who then noted immediately the fire chief and got direct contact with the fire department. The fire department arrives on site at 12:12 p.m. By 12:20, all fires and hazards for forest fire were eliminated and assessments are set to take place. No one was injured during the incident. At approximately 12:30 p.m., the station gates were open and gravity drainage restored until damage assessments was complete. Earlier in the day, management, we had to call into our maintenance contractor, Delcon. We normally do this anyhow, just if we're activated at stations, just to give them a heads up that things are going on. That call had happened earlier in the day. They were called again at the time of the incident. They were on site within the hour to start performing damage assessments. Management was on site throughout this time and for the days following, performing a thorough fact find, working with contractors to make the best decisions possible to get the station back to capacity as soon as possible. So in here, we want to thank our fire and emergency responders that gave us a hand in getting the station secured. They did a great job, and we really appreciate that. They were very fast and efficient and effective in what they did. So this is some data that we want to show, and like you said, there's a few things out there. We got some calls about the incident. Well, did that affect my water going up because the pumps went down and different things? So this is the data that supports what happened and what took place. So this gauge graph is at the Marvinboro pump station, and you can see where the arrow is pointing at. It represents the start of the pumping event. You can see our water elevations were around a 1.5. With rain falling and it's projected to rise, we went ahead and started pumping operations at 6:30 a.m. that morning. You can see the graph show the water dropping and a pull down starting at Marvinboro. The next graph represents the point of failure or the incident when it occurred. If you look at the timeline here, it's a little blurry and I apologize, but it was at 11:30 a.m. You see at the station, the graphs show, the water surface elevation rising at the pumping station because the operators and all had shut the pumping operation down in response to the incident. The next slide shows in this graph, the same day of the incident, after the events happen, things get secured and Delcon starts doing their damage assessments. It was pumps 2, 3, and 5 that had burn damage on them. So what we did was they had a team doing damage assessments on the burn engines, and they had another team looking at engines that didn't have burn damage, determining the cause of the problems and securing each individual engine and inspecting them to see the overall status and condition of all of the pumps. So by 8:30 that night, the same day of the incident, our contractor comes in and meets with Jade Robin and myself. He said, look, we feel very confident we can go ahead and start pumping operations back with the pumps that were not affected by the fire. So you can see in this graph that depicts what happened. From that point at 8:30 p.m. that night, you can see a constant pull down of water back to our pumping operation target around a 0 to 0.5. So that night, pumping operation resumes. This graph here is the same graph. It shows that we hit our target of 0 to 0.5 on July the 1st. That was done in precaution of more rain projected on the Tuesday following the event. We had another rain event coming to the parish. So we wanted to do everything from the minute that we could to get the water levels back safe in preparation for the event coming week. We did notice in that operation that engine had some mechanical issues. There was a valve that was cracked. We found this out after investigations the following day of the incident. So at that time, we had 3 pumps operational, 3 damaged with fire, 1 with mechanical. After further assessments, we made the decision it'd be best to take the clutch assembly off of engine number 1 that has internal mechanical problems and put it back towards one of the engines that was burnt, put the parts on it that can get that engine back up. We'll get to that in a later slide. This slide represents the farthest gauge northwest of the pumping station, which is at Black Bayou and 621. At no point from the time of incident, 12 p.m. on the 30th, did we see any water surface elevation rise. If you look at this graph, there was a continual drop in water surface elevation from the time of incident on. We just wanted to make sure and show what the data shows. This gauge here is the Bayou Goudin, which is the furthest west, out towards Gosmer and Prayville area. Same thing here on the date and the time of the incident, 11:45 a.m. on the 30th, a continual drop in water surface elevation. So everything flowed efficiently on gravity while the incident was the damage assessment was going on. So then we get to what caused this. The cause of this fire was due to a drop in air pressure. 4 significant factors were found by staff during the fact-finding process. All the pumps that are running at the station, all 7, are tied to one main air line and system, of which there are no mechanical devices or measures in the system to isolate one pump from the main line in the case of a failure. The electric air compressor is the primary air compressor, of which is backed up by a diesel compressor. The two are not set up with an automatic transfer switch, meaning humans have to recognize failure. If the primary compressor goes out and malfunctions, you have to manually go start up and swap over to a diesel air compressor if there's a failure in that primary compressor. Third thing we found was the solid metal guards around the clutches prevented the fire extinguisher's product from getting to the source of the fire. But they also contained that fire to where it occurred. Another thing that was noticed, there was a low-pressure alarm at the station. It was noticed to be non-functional. There was a low-pressure sensor switch that was in the system was faulty. Here's a photo of those 2 compressors side by side. It's just a representation of what's out there. But if one goes down, you have to manually go swap over to the other one. Here's a photo of the air system that's out there. And like we said, all engines, all 7, are pulling from the same source. This is a representation of the clutch. It was not engines, it was not gearboxes, it was the clutch that caught on the sources of flame was inside the clutch. So in the photo on the right is blue, that is your clutch. Inside that is a rubber airbag, or bladder they call it. When it's inflated, it engages the gears and you start pumping water. It's inflated by the air pressure of that air system. One of these 3 engines, we feel, had a rupture in that bladder. Being that there was no mechanical devices in that airline system, it was affecting every pump that was pumping at the time that the failure occurred. So no one operator knew which pump was the cause. So in a matter of 5 minutes, this all had to be taken care of and addressed, and did what they thought they could do as fast as they could. And I think, and we feel like they did as best they could with the situation they had at hand. The photo to the left is the guard. That clutch is inside that guard in that left photo. It's very difficult to get that product out of those fire extinguishers to that flame. So this is what the flame looked like when the fire department arrived. So don't think that the fire efforts that our guys didn't help or didn't do something for the parish. By the time the fire department got in there, they pretty well had it contained. They just ran out of sources of fire extinguisher. I think we used 18 fire extinguishers on the effort there. This is when the guards were taken off. They start doing damage assessments. These are your clutches and what they look like when all the guards and shrouds were removed, and they started looking into them. A couple other components in these photos you see to the left is a part called a guide slinger coupling. This absorbs vibration right next to your clutch. So this and the clutch are the 2 components that are being looked at to be replaced. We had a spare guide slinger and a spare clutch assembly on hand. To the right of this is where the clutch shaft goes into your engines. It was recommended that we change the rear seals of all the diesel engines on the 3 engines that received damage. Caterpillar technicians did that work on all 3 of the engines. They all 3 checked out. They've all been cranked. They're running fine. They just need the rest of the components of the guide slingers and the clutches, and those will be getting put back together. So as I mentioned earlier, engine number 1, some of the components from it were installed on engine number 5 that did receive burn damage. So if you look at the timestamp on the photo on January the 2nd at 3 p.m., we were able to get engine number 5 back online, which gave us 4 pumps. At that time, which is still where we're at today, we have engine 4, 5, and 6, and 7 online and ready to pump water. So in the planning process, we felt it best that we get everything in sequence to one side of the station that is up and running and work our way back down to the other end to where when we do pump, everybody's associated at one side of the station and being extra careful with the air system and things of that nature if we go back to pumping. Here's a photo of our spare clutch. We didn't have a set of shoes. It's like brake shoes in your truck or car. They have to get a set of shoes in. They're in. Jade Robin and myself met with Delcon on site today. They're set to start putting that clutch on engine number 3 tomorrow. So we are hopeful by Thursday of this week, we hopefully can set up and have 5 pumps back online at Marvin Bro. So what do we have in process right now? A lot of moving parts in all of this. We're in the process of gathering up all the cost damages pending due to the emergency. We've already gone on site with the insurance company and safety coordination officer. The existing alarm is being repaired and updated with low pressure switches and audio as well. We're working with our subject matter group of a DUR group for recommendations on automatic safety controls and engineering. As far as compressors, actuators, pressure switches, alarms, and monitoring, want to let you guys know we went over to Jefferson Parish on Friday. We took our pump tenant and our mechanic. Jade Robin and myself went. We wanted to look at a system similar to ours that has these mechanical cutoff devices in their system. So we went out and looked at that station and got our guys familiar with what they have over there. Guyslingers couplings have been sent off for assessment to see if they can be refurbished and or replaced. As soon as we find that out, we'll be getting those back to get on the other engines and also replenish our spare parts. Engine number 1 is currently being repaired by Caterpillar. We met with them today. There was a valve inside the engine that cracked in half. There's not a whole lot you can do when that happens. That valve cracked and that piece of valve got into the engine. So they're in the process of rebuilding all of that now, and we'll have an update once we get that clutch in of getting that engine back online. The final fact find is in process. I would say we have a solid week or 2 of that left, and we will be getting all of the facts that we found and getting with Mr. Dawson as far as making sure that we didn't miss anything or anything like that. So in a nutshell, that's where we are. We currently have 4 pumps online, and by the end of the week, we're shooting for 5, which is our quota, and we feel confident we're going to get there. And I just thank everybody that assisted us along the way with this, and I want to thank this board for putting those contracts in place for us to be able to do this within the hour. Having this station turn around and get it back online, I think is we're doing everything we can, guys, and we'll continue to do it around the clock until we get us back up. And I thank you and entertain any questions you may have.
Any questions? I don't have anybody's name, so you're number 2? Chase, go right ahead. Or were you number 1? Number 1 was Corey. I can't, I have no names on my, so I can't tell who's who here. Corey was first.
I'm first.
Sure.
Look at that.
Go ahead, Corey.
Great report, Ron. Thanks a lot. And Ms. Castle is right. I mean, obviously, rumors and the rumor mill in Ascension Parish is huge. And was this a maintenance issue? Could a maintenance program have helped us be better prepared for this?
I think that, in my opinion, this is just my opinion.
Of course.
I feel like there was a few projects along the way that took place. They covered the pumping station, right? They add pump 6, they add pump 7. Along that way, they revamped the air system at Marvin Bro. It used to be just the old 5 engines. Then they converted it to take on 6 and 7. And in my opinion, at that point, I don't see mechanical features in the air system. You can't rely on humans to fix everything. There's got to be some precautionaries in there to mechanically shut things off if levels get hit that are unsafe. I didn't see that in that system. So we're relying on our DURA group to go out there and validate what we're seeing and come up with a logistical suggestion that is engineered and vetted and in place somewhere else. And that way, when we come back to you guys with what we're gonna do, it's vetted by subject matters. But that's what I'm seeing is, you know, there's always room for better maintenance.
Sure.
Always. No doubt. And, you know, there was an alarm that didn't go off. Could it have been a maintenance? Absolutely. That's what we're fact finding. We're turning every pebble we can over.
And that's kind of what I'm thinking. I mean, I don't know if there is a maintenance process in place to where you guys are checking boxes.
Yeah.
Where you have somebody going through checking boxes, making every
Sure.
week or so, making sure something is
So
out
we
there.
had O&M manuals, right? Redone by a Dura Group. We just got the revised copy in October. We were on the way to getting per engine, you know, a checklist of here's what I need to check daily, weekly, monthly, 6 months, annually. That wasn't really ever in place. We're on the way to getting that. And unfortunately, this event took place, which assures we're on the right track. We just didn't quite get there before this incident happened.
And one other question, and again, this is just off the rumor mill I'm asking off of. I understand that several of the higher executives with drainage, dealing with Marvin Bro, basically everyone was taking their vacation at the end of the year. Do you believe that situation, had we had one of the guys in there, you know, I think Mr. Quintmall has used the phrase, you know, one of the smart guys, you know, yourself, Mr. Robin, you know, if we'd have had somebody not on vacation there to act a little bit quicker, could that have possibly
I'll tell you
aided us
this,
at all?
I think that the situation that happened, I think anybody, myself included, being at that station and that go on, what would have been a struggle? Would that have been, I couldn't answer that honestly.
Sure.
To tell you the God honest truth, I don't know. But I'll tell you this, the people that were there, it's not like it was their first visit at the pump station.
Hey, listen,
were
I've
seasoned.
heard nothing but praise for the fellas that were there. I mean, they went above
Sure.
and beyond what their capabilities were assumed to be to make this thing not become a huge,
Yeah,
a
and-
bigger disaster.
Our subject matter said every pump on that line, which was 6, could have had the same effect.
Yeah.
And so we appreciate their efforts, their dedication to it. So, yeah, I mean, got to take vacation sometime, Mr. Corey. But
Don't sweat it, man. I was on
vacation.
vacation too that week.
Yep.
So I understand.
Yeah,
Good job.
I think they did a great job. I think anybody out there would have had a challenge with this event. I really do.
I appreciate it, Ron. Again, thanks for the report. I do appreciate it.
Mr. President.
Yeah, so, to address the maintenance, you know, we have put in contract, Delcon and Dura, they do their annual checks. So, and they repair those, pumps and machines per those checks. And y'all sign many of those contracts, y'all, you know, exceed the cost limit so that if there's additional work that has been done. So we do have that in place. I think that in this particular situation where you have such good consistency with those pumps for such a long time, that there's no warning system to this. And when you build the station has like we have in stages, at some point in time, I think we should have requested a worst-case scenario. We work with a lot of industry groups, and Councilman Melanson will tell you at the plant, there are plenty of checks and valves and check things in place. That didn't exist, and that was, as this pump got built out and 6 and 7 got online, I think that should have been at that point in time. And I don't know who was here when 6 and 7 were built, but we rely on those consultants and engineers to do that. At that point in time, those alarms should have been put on that system, and those check valves and those precautionary things. And I think that being overlooked and having such good operation at this pump station and Delcon and Dura making sure these pumps work and operate like they have with such consistency, this one certainly caught us off guard, but those alarms needed to be in place, and I think that is the primary thing of what happened. I know that I was at the complex after I did my ride through the parish to check water levels. Ron was also checking water levels at the same time, and Jade was checking pump stations. So I don't know what other smart guys were out there other than maybe us. I wouldn't consider me one of those, but we were all hands on deck, and we were all here. None of us were on vacation. And again, being there, without that alarm, and then you notice that pump is smoking, heating, and then catches fire, at what time does that excitement level put you in a mode to say, all right, I'm going to sit here and try to figure out what happened? No, let's shut operations down, call the fire department, make sure every personnel is safe. If you got to evacuate. We'll call the professionals in, which we did. Mr. LeBlanc's here. He can tell you about the time frame of how quickly the fire department was on site of a pump station that is not in the inner city, that is out on the outskirts of the parish. Can't say enough about their response time and professionalism, getting behind those guards to put those fires out because they were still smoking and quite hot when they received, because of those guards that are over those clutches. You can't quite get in there, and they even had trouble to do it, but their expertise in doing that got in there and put those fires out. So I don't know how, other than this being caught somewhere along the past decades as this station has been built, that we do it. But we're here now, and this is where, professionals like Bill Dawson with plant experience, and we're going to reach out to some of our industry partners. As we develop this plan, we'd like, can y'all come take a look? Y'all do these SCADA systems and check valves, and y'all are experts at this to prevent explosions and things like. Come take a look. Give us your input, and so that we're making sure that every eyeball of every subject matter expert puts eyes on this, so that when we take this initiative to improve this station and the safety of this station and its personnel, that we're doing everything right, and that's the objective.
Clint, if I could add one thing, I did forget a slide or two. No big deal, Jarius, but the following slides, we're going to SCADA at the Jefferson Parish trip. Their control operators here, you can see their valving on the left picture. There's those shutoff valves in their lines. Now, this is a fuel line, but it's still the same principle as what we were looking to do. Their operators have a visual to the right in a panel. If they see an issue, they push a button, and the whole line shuts down at a fingertip. And so that's, I think, there's a phase into that. And like you said, President, we'll get it vetted by Mr. Dawson and all the subject matters at hand where we need to go. But in the heat of the moment, when you don't have a device like this, the engines we have, you have to manually go turn them off and disengage them. It's not necessarily just a push of a button, so to say. So I did want to touch on that. Thanks, Jarius.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for your questions, Corey. I think we have a couple other councilmen who want to comment. Mr. Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ron, thank you, and the past president. I'm not one of those smart guys, but I was out there with y'all screaming to get the Henderson on. I'm glad to hear your O&M policy. I guess what I'd like to hear out of this, if you got 6 pumps going, you've got 4 men there, and you having to send another one to somewhere else, because it was total chaos that morning. Yeah. We were able to stop the rise on Henderson within an hour.
Right.
I guess with the O&M, when you have an event coming like this, I think we're going to need more men or more QC, qualified people, just eyes on the pumps, air compressor, whatever we have out there. And I hope to hear something out of this O&M plan that, I know we have vacation, I know we have all kind of stuff, but I would like to see more hands on deck. And like I said, good job. No homes were flooded that I know of. We done a great job, but it's just, you know, if it's just one area, I can understand that. But we've got places that are having problems all over the parish. And,
Well, I can attest to Jade and I have been out at the pumps with all of the staff, and we're trying to get them to understand that if there's something wrong, get it tasked to get it fixed. That's what Delcon is here for. And so that's some of the things that we're working on right now, and everything that we can find that needs maintenance is being tasked to get it up to where it needs to be.
Mr. President?
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about two things. I want to talk about rain rate per hour. So with this event, even though you see 4 to 5 inches at times, it was 7 inches per hour per rain rate, and that's in the new gauges that y'all have signed a contract to put in place. Now we can look at rain rate per hour, not only inches per hour. And so it's important to note that our system on how it's designed, especially in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, was a 10-year design. We're getting rain rates that are above that. And so when residents show pictures on social media or whatever, we respond and we go look. But a lot of this is the design that was in place at the time simply can't handle that amount of rate of rain per hour. It just can't. The system is for a 10-year storm. You know, our storms are getting to be 20-year, 50-year, and 100-year. And to note with the Henderson pumping station, on the way it was designed and built, we can't close those gates until that hits elevation 4. So I've talked to Board Member Lambert on several occasions of us adding some pumps to that station and redesigning so we can start the pump down like we do in Marvin Bro in Henderson. And again, that's a long-term plan. It's a lot of money, but it certainly needs to be looked at, because all we can do in Henderson is turn the pumps, leave the gate on, and hope that the flow of water of the pumps pulling it pushes the water out to Amite River. But the gate's open. But we can't close it because the design is only to be closed at 4 foot. So we can't pre-pump Henderson at all. All we can do is have the gate wide open and have the pumps on, and hopefully that water is pushing that water to the gate meet. So that's a situation where Henderson's a little different. Sorrento, we're able to pull down. We keep in the negative levels in Sorrento. -2, -3. We cannot do that in Henderson. It's important for that basin and those residents that live in that basin to understand that. And so we definitely need to have it on the radar in the future to improve Henderson Pump Station to allow us to pre-pump down to levels that are acceptable. I had mentioned this to Chairman Melanson at the time, the incident when he was out there. These parts are becoming more difficult to get. These pumps are old. A lot of these parts they don't make anymore. We really need to start a multi-year budget to start budgeting for new engines in this station. They are not cheap. But we need to start putting and allocating a certain amount, and I would suggest start that next year, to start replacing these 5 engines eventually, because eventually we will not be able to get parts for these machines, and we will have to manufacture parts, and that will take a serious amount of time. And so it's just something for the board to consider in the future. We need to take no action today on it. It just needs to be on our radar as we proceed forward. As our stations continue to age, we have to start rethinking about replacing some of these mechanical operations. Thank you.
Well, Mr. President, that's add that to our list of things to do this year. Get started on that, so that the guys or gals perhaps who are here next year can move that forward. Mr. Melanson, thank you for your patience.
I'm gonna just add a few comments. So this is one area of parish government where I just feel absolutely most comfortable. I know how to manage a huge, large piece of equipment, and I can tell you it was, look, whenever we were walking around Marvin Borough after that, when I walked up to them air compressors, and you know, we got our most expensive parish infrastructure that we own, and that 2-inch air line holding 300 pounds of pressure, you know, can destroy those 7 pumps. And the first thing I think of is, how do we not have a pressure transmitter and a shut-off valve? Not a shut-off valve on each individual engine, but why do we not have an automated system to where when that air pressure hits that low threshold, it automatically shuts down the entire station?
Right.
So look, I don't know how many hundreds of millions of dollars it would cost to replace this thing if we had to start from scratch today. But I can tell you, walking around there, I mean, it feels like 1995 technology as far as the safeguards for the mechanical equipment. So absolutely, let's lean on Delcom and Ordura. Let's really, 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 push or skater for this thing, and the proper alarms, If there was alarm on there, if the guy's all the way at the other end can even hear it, if all that's working. So yeah, I just want to throw that out there that we really need to modernize this thing.
Absolutely.
Not to, it's important to protect equipment, but luckily no one was hurt, because
Correct.
them guys are inside
Absolutely.
them motor houses, right? I mean, that's smoke and the heat in there. So, kudos to them. And just my personal opinion, I mean, that system is set up for this kind of incident as it is. I don't know if you would have had 40 people there without an alarm.
Exactly.
And without a shut-off valve, without any of that, it was going to happen. I think we're actually pretty lucky that only 3 engines,
That's it.
were affected. But no, we need to make it a priority. I went to Jefferson last summer, I mean, that place looks like a chemical plant on the inside of it with the technology it has. So we really need to move.
I will say this, Chase, we do have the SCADA at Sorrento. So we did implement SCADA, and it's fully automated. We don't have to have people there for it to keep that level maintained. But when we did that, we had them put enough memory in the network in vision of, going to Marvinboro or Henderson or adding more SCADA to that server. So we're looking at all of our sources, and they'll be making recommendations soon.
All right. And I can tell you, another thing we need to look at is the fuel setup on this thing. I mean, there's no flame arresters, no, if a fire happens or whatever, I mean, that's going right back to them gravity-fed diesel tanks.
For sure.
So, outside of right here, that's more things we really, really need to look at, but that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chase, for bringing those things. I've heard some of those concerns today from others, and I believe that the administration and Mr. Dawson are going to do a really strong look at what's needed, not only in protection devices, but in fire protection, and get our people trained up to be prepared for that kind of incident, and hope that we never, ever have it. Mr. President.
I'm glad y'all brought up that point. And Mr. LeBlanc, who was present, we both concluded, I mean, within the event itself, that the first question is, do our guys have fire training? And so we're going to implement that program and have our staff who are at the pump stations have some of the basic fire training necessary to handle that event. It's never been in place. It's never been thought of, but due to the incident, we're going to obviously get our guys trained up in some fire training.
We're always learning. No doubt that's important. Mr. Wagasback.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Casso. Yeah, so I'm definitely glad everybody was safe, and we preserved the equipment. While we're talking about training, I guess I was thinking that, listening to Chase, so obviously modernization will help, but also as we talk about all hands on deck, do we put it to where there's certain people, you have to qualify for jobs inside of a facility. Do we have an operating manual? Do we have emergency procedures for these guys to follow? And then the next step would be who's trained and who can do that. And I'm not saying that anything's been done wrong. Obviously, we're learning, we're all learning, but I would say that would be something to, in lieu of expensive automation, training could be a place for that, where only certain people, they know exactly what to do. I don't know what would have helped this. Obviously, I think about what went on with the pumps and why the clutches failed, and I think I actually grasp what happened. But in lieu of that, do we have operating procedures? If we don't, I think that's something we should look at. Just like a HAZOP, you look at certain fail rates. I would think in a system like this, it'd be pretty easy to put some kind of training program in with, what if this happens, you have to do this. What if this happens, you have to do this. So I'd like to see that also be part of this study and path forward to put in procedures to make us save our equipment. If it is old and indeed it's expensive in the meantime, training to me is something you could put in place to protect this equipment and protect that station. So that's the only comment I had.
There's no doubt in my mind that the dollar spent training would be offset by the cost of recovery after something like this happens. So thank you all very much for the work you're doing. We appreciate you being here tonight. Does anybody have any other questions? Mr. President?
Just to let you know, we are working closely with our insurance company. The station is covered, so we're working closely with them. They have been on site, and so we'll continue to do that, to look to receive some benefit from that to help us shoulder this cost.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Ron, so much.
Thank you all.
Motion to adjourn?
We have a motion and a second to adjourn, and we are adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. President.